Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Best Practice series by PEDIGREE Foundation and San Diego Humane Society. I'm Meg Meredith, manager at PEDIGREE Foundation. We are excited to be back with a follow-up session from San Diego Humane Society. They're joining us today to talk through the lessons they've learned from their Welcome Committee programming. Shannon Feeney, Behavior and Training Manager, is going to kick us off today. Shannon?
Thanks, Meg. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to those that are joining us maybe for the first time today, and that's okay. And then welcome to those as well that are coming back from our first session 2 weeks ago. And today we are here to talk to you about lessons learned, staff and volunteer training, and lessons learned through developing the Welcome Committee program within our shelter. My name is Shannon Feeney. I have spent about 13 years in the animal welfare field, volunteering and working in different capacities for different organizations across the country. I've spent most of my time in behavior and training, definitely a big passion of mine. I manage part of the internal program at San Diego Humane Society. I am a certified shelter behavior consulting specialist. So that's certified in shelter behavior consulting for cats and dogs. I'm also a certified professional dog trainer and a licensed family paws parent educator. And to date, I'm joined by my two talented coworkers, Amanda Kowalski. Amanda Kowalski is our VP, Vice President of Animal Welfare. So Amanda oversees our behavior program and operations org-wide for San Diego Humane Society. Amanda holds a master's in science in animals and public policy that she received through the Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine, I believe at Tufts University. She also holds a certificate in applied animal behavior through the University of Washington. She's also a certified professional dog trainer, a CAWA, certified animal welfare administrator, and she's spent about 15 years in the animal welfare field, wearing different hats, and much of that in behavioral care in shelters. She's also overseen the behavior program at San Diego Humane Society, which includes the Behavior Center, for about 7 years now. Fernando Diaz is joining us as well. Fernando is the Behavior Center or our Behavior Center Academy Manager. He's also spent about 15 years in the animal welfare field, wearing lots of different hats, working with marine mammals, reptiles, fish, cats, dogs. Fernando is also a certified shelter behavior consulting specialist, so certified shelter behavior consulting for cats and dogs. He's also a certified professional dog trainer, a certified dog behavior consultant, and a certified fear-free trainer. Lots of acronyms for the group of us. Fernando also has served on a couple different boards. So he's served on the boards for IAABC and Shelter Playgroup Alliance as well. Next slide, please. Okay. So for today's agenda and what we're going to be talking about, we're really going to focus on staff and volunteer training and some of the lessons that we've learned through building out a really big staff and volunteer training for our shelter called the Welcome Committee Program. Again, this is the second in a webinar series that we started 2 weeks ago. So if you didn't watch the first one, that's okay. We're just glad you're here today, and that is available in a recorded format at the link at the bottom of this slide. So if you haven't watched that one, we definitely recommend that you go back and watch that. But we'll bring you up to speed on what we talked about in that first webinar today as well. We're going to tell you a little bit about who we are, San Diego Humane Society, who we are, what we do, a little bit about our programs. We're going to do an overview of what the Welcome Committee program is. And then today we're really going to focus on the educational component of the Welcome Committee program. So that is really all about the educational program that we designed. So designing impactful educational programs for staff and volunteers. We ask that today, if you have questions during or throughout the presentation, go ahead and just use the chat function to drop your questions into the chat. We will answer questions in the chat that are a little bit simpler, more straightforward, just during today's presentation and sort of just do that together. But we are going to pause at the end of today's presentation for questions. So any more like complicated questions or questions that we want to answer at length, or for questions that maybe you're saving until the end, we will pause at the end again to answer those and make sure that we get to all of those today. And if you come away from this with more questions, maybe you leave today and all sorts of questions come up, or you watch our first webinar if you haven't watched that yet, and some additional questions come up, you want to pick our brains, talk to us, or ask questions, you can use this group email address listed here on the screen. This isn't the first time you're going to see this email address, but I would just write it down so you have it handy. So Behavior Center Academy at sdhumane.org. That's how you can connect with us after today and ask any questions related to Welcome Committee or anything that you're learning today, really, or want to pick our brains about. And again, copy of today's webinar and then a copy or recording of last week's webinar is going to be available at pedigreefoundation.org/shelters-grant, that link at the bottom of this screen. Next slide, please. Okay. So a little bit about who we are, depending on who you are and where you're coming from. Y'all probably have different degrees of familiarity with our organization. So just to kind of contextualize who we are, what we're talking about today, and this program, and give you an idea of who we are a pretty large organization. We have multiple campuses sprinkled throughout different parts of San Diego County. We are an open admission shelter, so that means that we have straight contracts, and that is with 13 cities, including San Diego City, which is a really big contract within the county of San Diego. We have about 600 plus staff members. I think we're approaching 700 at this point in time, so growing, and about 3,000 plus active volunteers in lots of different types of volunteer roles. So we have people that spend time with cats, people that spend time with dogs. We have foster volunteers, event type volunteers, specialized volunteers that might be volunteering with our behavior and medical programs. And yearly in a calendar year, we see about 40,000 animals coming through our facilities. So high volume, big open admission shelter. We have a volunteer program, foster program, behavior and medical programs. Our behavior program includes a behavior center facility. So it's a facility that a current facility we opened in 2019. And since then, we've helped about 6,000 animals through that facility alone. But our behavior program and our behavior and training staff spans the entire organization. So we have behavior and training staff and volunteers at most of our locations currently. Our medical program, that includes community spay neuter, in-house, seeing patients in-house, of course, and a community veterinary clinic as well. And then in addition to that, we also have community-based programs. So programming that's designed to support the pets and the people that are in our communities. And part of the aim there is preventing shelter intake, but also just providing support and resources to our community members. Our behavior center facility I mentioned earlier, we've had about 6,000 animals since opening that newer facility that's located at our San Diego campus off of Gain Street. About 6,000 animals have passed through and been helped through that facility alone. And behavior center, we've had one, I think, since about 2013, but our behavior program began in 2000. So our behavior program's been well established for over about 2 decades now. We also have a kitten nursery. So our kitten nursery, since I think its inception in 2009, we've helped about 27,000 kittens. The kitten nursery. We also have a humane law enforcement team that is working in and around those 13 cities that we are serving. And then Project Wildlife as well, that is helping care for and rehabilitate wildlife throughout the county of San Diego. So lots going on for us. And just in summary, we are a high volume open admission shelter. Next slide, please. Okay. So what Welcome Committee is, again, we talked really about sort of what this looks like. We talked about our operations protocol and what Welcome Committee looks like when it's in action and it's happening in our facilities in our first webinar. But to bring you up to speed on what that is, Welcome Committee is an operations initiative or program. We have a written SOP that our staff and volunteers follow and participate in. Welcome Committee is really spearheaded by our admissions staff and our animal care staff. Our admissions team, is identifying animals at the point of intake that are experiencing fear, anxiety, and stress, and they are flagging them in our shelter database and through signage at kennel front, so that our staff and volunteers can immediately start to provide support to those animals, because these animals in particular are gonna need something right from us. Our Welcome Committee program is supported by our behavior and training team, and really anybody can participate. So all staff and volunteers can participate by seeing those indications, right, that an animal or a dog in particular has been or is a part of our Welcome Committee program. So things like dropping off treats, adding additional enrichment to a kennel for that animal. Those are aspects of our Welcome Committee program. But we also have developed an educational program or component in addition to that as well. So the aim and the goal for Welcome Committee is really to identify animals at the point of intake that are experiencing increased fear, anxiety, or stress, and flag that to get them immediate support from our missions, animal care team, and the rest of our staff and volunteers. For folks that want to participate in behavior intervention, which is also an aspect of our Welcome Committee program, we have our Welcome Committee educational component, which is a program that takes about 4 months. It's an online learning program that we're going to talk to you about today. Lives online, something that can be picked up and put down that folks can complete and really learn about what behavior intervention looks like, and start to learn about how to do that for these animals as well. Next slide, please. So our Welcome Committee educational program, just to give y'all a bit more of an idea of what that looks like and what the experience is like for learners. Again, this is an online educational program. This is optional. This is not something that we require for all of our staff and volunteers, but again, for folks that want to participate in Welcome Committee by implementing behavior plans and behavior modification, we do ask that those folks enroll into the educational component to develop a deeper understanding, essentially, of behavior intervention. But again, everybody can participate, right? We have those indications in our shelter database and at kennel front for these animals. So anybody can drop a treat in a kennel for a dog that's experiencing fear, or add additional enrichment or other things to their kennel. So to give you an outline of what the actual Welcome Committee educational program, that online learning, looks like and is about, it takes roughly about 4 months for our learners to complete, and it includes about 20 required modules that cover a range of topics. 13 of these modules were graciously donated to us by Shelter Playgroup Alliance. Shout out to Shelter Playgroup Alliance. And those 13 modules are from their core program. Those 13 modules cover canine communication, so advanced behavior and body language in dogs, and also how dogs learn. And then in addition to those 13 modules, we created about 7. And our 7 modules cover behavior intervention. So we're looking at behavior plans and behavior modification and how to implement those for dogs. We designed the Welcome Committee educational program with like chunked learning in mind. So our modules are like little bite-sized pieces that a really busy individual working in a shelter that is open admission, large, really, really busy day to day, is able to bite off little pieces of that and complete modules in about 10 to 20 minutes. And that chunked learning portion was we felt really important for our staff and for our learners in particular. There is an assessment component to our learning modules as well. A majority of our learning modules are followed by either a written assessment, where maybe someone is learning to document behavior in an objective way using objective language, or they are recording themselves demonstrating a skill and submitting a video to a group of graders that are providing feedback on the skills that they're demonstrating. And again, this assessment component and that feedback component is really geared at taking folks a little bit deeper and really deepening their understanding of behavior modification, and that skill set that comes along with that. There are optional modules included in the Welcome Committee educational program. That's about 5 modules. And those cover handling skills, dog-dog introductions, and dog-dog play. For us at San Diego Humane Society, for staff and volunteers that are participating internally in play groups or play pairs, we do ask that they complete those optional modules, because that's going to give them, again, the information and some of the skills that they need in order to facilitate play groups at our facilities. Next slide, please. And here's where I'm going to pass it off to Fernando.
Thank you, Shannon. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the commitment and what's involved in actually doing the Welcome Committee education program. From an organizational standpoint, one of the biggest things is time. Time is a limited resource in any kind of shelter or rescue, and being able to set aside time for your staff to do not only go through the learning process, watch the videos, but then the assignments, that's a huge commitment. This being a virtual learning system, technology is also a big part of that process. And so being able to have space, have computers, have recording equipment. Thankfully, nowadays, many of us have our smartphones, and we can record things pretty easily. But it does take time, and it does take high-speed internet. And so it's definitely a process and a commitment to getting everything done. Additionally, because for some of these assignments, you're actually recording yourself performing behavior tasks, you need other staff members to help you. And so that means that you have second or third staff members who are also taking time away from other things they can be doing to help record these videos, to help to do the behavior modification, to set up situations. And so it's definitely a big commitment for an organization. It's a commitment towards the future, being able to say, okay, we want to improve our knowledge base, we want to improve our skill set, and provide our staff with these skills. And so that continuing education and professional development commitment is always going to be there. It's huge. The science is ever changing. The technology is constantly developing. And so being able to commit that time and recognize that, okay, that means that we're not doing other things, or maybe that manager needs to step in and assist so that the staff member can complete the assignment. That is a huge undertaking. And so completing it takes that time, that technology, the commitment to building up your staff. Next slide, please. One of the things that we did at San Diego Humane Society, which I thought was very helpful, was setting aside specific training locations. And so you'd see placards like this throughout the building with the designated training space sign there, as well as the placards set up at the actual tables where people can actually work. And so we set aside specific areas within the building that were low traffic, tended to be quieter, helps people to focus on the actual assignments. For anyone who works in a shelter, you know, getting a place that's quiet is hard. It's very difficult to find some place where it's quiet, it's away from everything, that's away from traffic, that's not going to be distracting. And so setting up chairs, setting up desks, setting up drawers with pens and paper and headphones is a huge thing, so that you can, noise there is going on around you, you can drown that out, you can focus, as well as not distract other people who are trying to do their job. And so we would set these designated training spots up, and we'd have a schedule set so that you knew when it was available. We also used it for some of our continuing education that's not welcome committee based, so it did have that, you know, that double kind of help there. But it was definitely a huge thing for anyone who was going through welcome committee, whether it was staff or volunteers, to be able to have that designated space where they can sit down. They knew they had a computer there. They knew they had the equipment they needed. It wasn't running around trying to find a space or a time or a place, and then dealing with all the chaos and distractions that tend to occur in the shelter environment. So we do recommend trying this in your organizations, even if it's just a small corner spot. The one on the far left there, which is a small desk put in a corner that otherwise wasn't really being used, that otherwise probably would have ended up being like some sort of storage space. And so being able to set aside a quick desk, a chair, helping people to actually do their work there, it's a huge component of the welcome committee. Next slide, please. And with that organizational commitment comes the individual commitments. And one of the biggest things is that foundational knowledge. At San Diego Humane Society, we have our orientation for new hires and onboarding. The new hire orientation is 3 days worth of knowledge. So that's a lot of information coming through. I know when I first started, it felt like I was drinking from the fire hose. It's a huge amount of information, but it helps you to know how your organization works, how your organization handles things, what the SOPs are, all those processes that are part of everyday life at your organization. In addition to that, we have the 90-day onboarding, so that people can learn their particular tasks in the particular areas. And in addition to that, we also had about 25 hours, I believe, of additional learning from our learning and development team. So this is a lot of information coming through. And so we wanted to make sure that our team members that were going through Welcome Committee had that knowledge in place before they did Welcome Committee. Otherwise, it's just overwhelming. It's too much. I mean, even the information with the onboarding, the orientation, you're not going to maintain all of that. Some of that you're going to have to rehear, relearn over time. And so if you're learning something complex and new, or something that changes the paradigm of what you're accustomed to when it comes to behavior, having that base knowledge in place was essential. With that commitment to learning, for a staff member or volunteer who wants to go through Welcome Committee, it's not easy. It's science, it's behavior, and that's never. We try to make it as simple as possible. We do build upon knowledge, so it's not completely overwhelming. But it is hard work. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, filming yourself. I know I'm never comfortable, filming myself doing stuff, no matter how long I've been doing the work. And so you have to really be committed and say, I want this knowledge. I want to go through this process. And as you go through that process, you're going to receive feedback. And so our volunteer graders would look over the assignments that were done and respond, sometimes in email, sometimes in a quick blurb, but let you know what you did well, what you could improve upon. At times, ask you to redo an assignment, and so being open to that and honestly vulnerable to be able to say, okay, I don't know everything, and this person is trying to help me. That's huge, and that's sometimes easier said than done. And so being open to that feedback, taking that feedback and using it to learn, to build, to continue that learning process is huge in this process. And lastly, that time management. With, as I said before, you know, when we're talking about the organizational commitments, we all have tasks to do. And even if our management is putting aside an hour for us to do welcome committee, I know I'm still thinking about the tasks that didn't get done, that animal that does need to get out for a quick walk, the kennel that does need to be cleaned. And so really being able to manage that time so that you can still get work done and focus on the welcome committee process so that you can succeed and do well in that is an essential tool for this process. Next slide. And so as we're talking about welcome committee and the education and building up the, you know, what's involved with it, the commitment, we know we've gotten a lot of messages already of people who are excited and wanting to get into that program. And I applaud you for that. And I'm excited to have you. Our next welcome committee cohort is scheduled for September. And we will be setting aside some slots for individuals outside of San Diego Humane Society. The easiest way to keep track of that is to go ahead and sign up on that resource page, which we showed in the first presentation. When you do that, you get set up on a mailing list as well. And so we will be sending out information about when the sign up occurs and making sure we gain whoever's interested in the welcome committee cohort, get as many as we can through that process. And so again, signing up at the registration at the resource page, or you can email Behavior Center Academy at sdhumane.org for more information as well. But the resource page is probably the easiest way to get on our list so that we can reach out to you and let you know when we're bringing on the next cohort. That resource page also has our guide and all of the information that we've been sharing throughout this presentation as well. So you have that information there as well. Okay. And so the education material that we put together, as well as the bulk of it, which came from the Shelter Playgroup Alliance, we use specific scientifically designed education frameworks to do that. And so the ADDIE model is one of the more well-known ones. And just a quick overview, Amanda's going to go a little bit further into that as far as how we went through it for our specific process. But you start with analyzing what is it you want people to learn, who your learners are, what behaviors you want to change. And then you use that information to start to design. Bloom's taxonomy helps you to figure out what your learning objectives are. And as you can see in the diagram there, we start off with remembering, just being able to say, I recognize that this is a behavior. And you move up that process to the point where you're actually creating. And so it's definitely a building process where it's kind of looking like a pyramid there, but it helps to kind of illustrate just how difficult it is to build this educational material. We're not experts at it. We've worked with people at Shelter Playgroup Alliance who have a lot more knowledge than we do. And we kind of use that information to kind of build this up. Once you have the design in place, you start to develop the actual classes, the learning material, whether the videos, the media, all that information, and you go on to implement that, which of course is just setting it out to the learners. But it doesn't stop there. We then move on to evaluating using the Kirkpatrick model, figuring out, okay, what is it that we did well? Where can we improve? It's a constantly changing process. And as we've gone through Welcome Committee, different cohorts, we have built up on it. We have changed things. We've added information. We've looked at it and said, okay, we're seeing that people are unable to handle this particular bit of knowledge because they don't have this base knowledge beforehand. And so adding that information and learning as we continue to then complete that circle, analyze, design, and develop again more material. And Amanda will kind of take you through. Oh, wait, I still have one more slide. Forgot. For those of you who are looking to learn a little bit more about instructional design, we do provide a couple of resources. Coursera has some low cost and no cost introductory courses. Basic information, but it gives you an idea of kind of how this process works. There are also some books here that were recommended to us by the Shelter Playgroup Alliance, and some online courses that you can take to kind of build that knowledge. And Amanda will take you through the specific process of how we built our learning material.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Right. So those resources that Fernando just shared, I think are really great introductory. They definitely help me as somebody in leadership and working on also on our like strategic plans and goals. They helped me to create a framework for a lot of process improvements and protocols. Protocol changes and protocol implementation in addition to this educational program. So highly recommended for anybody who's going to be involved in the process for developing training for staff and volunteers, but also for leaders as well. So as Fernando said, we use the ADDIE model to guide our process of creating this educational program. And so what I'll do is I'll just walk us through the different phases and the different tasks and objectives that are in those phases that will hopefully help to inspire and guide you as you think about adding or even elevating or evaluating your existing educational programs for staff and volunteers. So this model, again, is widely used, and it's widely used and well known because of its flexibility and iterative nature, where anything that we create, we are always going to be changing based on what we're doing in our organization, based on different programmings, based on the staff and volunteers that are supporting our organization and processes. And so this model really helps it allows for continuous improvement and adaptation based on the feedback and evaluation process that is included in it. So in this first phase, we'll be identifying the specific needs of the program, including knowledge and skills required for staff and volunteers. And so we'll consider, if we're looking at specific behavioral training needs for the shelter, maybe considering common issues faced by dogs in your care, and what are those skills that staff and volunteers need to be able to address those things. As part of this identifying needs part, we're also assessing our learner profiles and understanding what are they already getting as far as knowledge and skills from our organization. And Fernando explained it really nicely in that we have a really long or intensive onboarding process for our organization. And we were very mindful about where we wanted to put this in and what group of employees we wanted to recommend this to, knowing that many of them are still going to be on that journey from coming into the organization, learning who we are, processes, protocols, skills specific to their jobs, and then having to take this on. And that is just overwhelming. And that's not we already recognized early on that we weren't going to be setting anybody up for success if we also tacked this on as a requirement. So this is that portion of, assessing your learner profile, again, understanding their current level of knowledge and skills, and this will help tailor what your needs are. One thing that I also enjoy doing, just as a helpful tip for being able to assess learner profiles, I love surveys, and sending out a simple survey, or even if you have team huddles and going to the team huddles and say, what are the 3 most important behavior topics you or your team could benefit in increasing their knowledge and skills in? That will give you some objective data to go off of when you're looking at what is needed for your teams. And also, if you do it on an annual or even biannual basis, maybe every 6 months, you'll be able to see if those things change. Are there additional needs, or are we still not meeting the mark as far as our training programs and education for staff and volunteers, because we're still hearing that something is missing? And then you might have to dig a little deeper. But I do love that as a way to be able to collect that information and also be able to check and use it on later to see whether or not we've met our goals. And then leveraging existing resources. So we're so grateful for PEDIGREE Foundation, the Dogs Rule Grant, and being able to go through this process we were able to work with Shelter Playgroup Alliance, and we learned so much from this process of putting together this, this training program. And I recognize, though, that every shelter is going to be at a different place and have different resources available to them. And so one thing that we still do ourselves is leveraging existing resources. And so during the stage, you would review the materials that are available through other programs that are, widely recommended. Fear Free, ASPCA Pro, Behavior Vets, Pedigree Foundation, Maddie's Fund, right? Those are just to list a few. There's a lot of really great information out there now. Great presentations. Maddie's Fund just did a 2-day behavior camp with a lot of really great information. And so taking a look, reviewing those materials yourself and seeing whether or not those would meet some of your needs. And then you can always fill in the gaps if with areas where maybe they're not hitting or meeting the mark. In the next phase, we have our design phase. And here we're going to be drafting learning objectives and identifying how we will assess knowledge and gathering materials to meet the needs that we identified in the first phase. And so when we're talking about outlining learning objectives, this is where we would incorporate Bloom's taxonomy, right, to clearly define what your staff and volunteers should know and be able to do after completing the training. So objectives should be measurable and directly linked to the needs identified in the analysis phase. And in our toolkit, we gave some really great examples of action words to help you craft those learning objectives. And those action words are associated with each level of learning that's here in that triangle or that pyramid for Bloom's taxonomy. And by using this model and those action words, it helps to facilitate crafting clear and specific objectives that align with your desired level of learning and behavior change for people. And so Justin is an example for remembering. So if I was working on an introductory course on canine behavior basics, and we're really focusing in that remembering section where we're recalling basic facts and concepts, then one of my learning objectives could be recall the body language cues for fear, anxiety, and stress. And in this process, or in this second phase, we're also thinking about what assessments help to kind of validate or be able to measure retention and skill building. And so for this first level, like this may be remembering and recalling information may be a great place where we have some multiple choice questions. In that next level where it's understanding, if I was writing a learning objective for an introductory behavior course, it could be something as to explain the reasons behind this common behavior like barking, right? And so we're grasping the meaning of basic facts and concepts and can explain them a little bit more. And here's where short answer assessments are really great. Shannon shared that for some of our assessments, we had folks write objective behavior notes, and that demonstrates a level of understanding there. And then for applying and analyzing, this is where we get into more like hands-on practical skills assessment. So for instance, if for that same course, or for like the welcome committee, in that applying section, we may say that our learning objective is that we want our learners to demonstrate how to use positive reinforcement, to modify a dog's behavior. So that's really, really basic, but again, gives you an idea of creating something that's measurable and directly linked to the behavior change and what we want to see our learners gain, what kind of skills and knowledge. And then finally in this phase, we have choose delivery methods. So as we're leveraging existing trainings, many of these are video and online learning. So highly recommend designated training spaces. Group watch parties are really great if they can also be distraction free, because we do want folks to be engaged in the presentation as well and not distracted by other things happening around. And then for those applying and kind of meeting the applying and analyzing section of the objectives, hands-on and practical follow-ups are really great. And that could be done by recording and then submitting to somebody who would score them, and or working with somebody hands-on. In the develop phase, we are creating course materials. So if we've identified any gaps that we need to fill that aren't already in our existing resources, that's where we would start to develop those materials, including video content or those interactive assessments. We're also organizing the materials, right? So if we're using a lot of outside resources, having a one-pager with links that are sent to people so that they can easily link and not have to search and, Google search and find, login information and things like that. That's a really great way to set up your staff, your volunteers with the information right at hand. In this phase, you can also consider a pilot program. I mentioned the last presentation. I love pilot programs. I love being able to work with a smaller group first of staff and volunteers to test and adjust before rolling something out organization-wide. We have 600 plus staff members, about over 400 are our operations staff that would be eligible to be taking this training program and working with welcome committee dogs and behavior plans. And so for us, having a smaller group of staff and volunteers test and give us feedback beforehand really help to be able to identify any potential issues and address them before rolling it out to the entire organization. And of course, this is an iterative process, so we learned after every single cohort, but for that initial cohort, we were able to identify really kind of glaring things that we didn't think about because we're not in those roles. So it gave us some really good perspective. Phase implementation is also really helpful here. So gradually introducing the training program, allowing some time to adjust, and kind of doing smaller groups along the way is also a really nice way to be able to do that and adjust as you learn more. And then if there are any hands-on assessments or hands-on components, making sure that instructors are prepared, those who are delivering those assessments are really well versed in the materials, comfortable with teaching those methods, and or comfortable with whatever assessment process you have. And then finally creating a communications plan. And I think this is probably the most important of all of this. I mean, these are all important steps in this phase, but really communication is so vital to really clearly articulating why we are doing this training course, why it's being implemented, how it aligns with our shelter's mission, highlighting the benefits for the animals, the staff, and overall organization. And also providing clear information about the support that is available during this time. A lot of times, even though these programs are a benefit to our staff and volunteers and our animals, it can feel like a massive change or it's a massive disruption to our routines and trying to help the animals, especially when, Fernando used the great example of, going away for 10, 20 minutes, but knowing that you also have a couple dogs that need to go out. And so that's where this communication plan really helps to provide details about how staff will be supported going through a training program. The next phase is implementation. And so I also call this the support phase. So while, things are up and running, this is where we start to see, the need for making sure we have the support mechanisms in place. And so support can look like weekly emails, having checklists, making sure that there are supplies available at those training, designating training spaces, again, getting buy-in from all the leaders to make sure that they are scheduling and then holding staff accountable to actually taking the time to use that scheduled time to take the training programs, stepping into routines if they need to, stepping in to take, dogs out, having more volunteers maybe for those time periods to help with support, offset some of the work that a staff may be missing because they are going through their training program. I think this is also the phase where, it's really important as a leader to lead by example and model that positive behavior. We as leaders should also be actively participating in the training and demonstrating the behaviors that are practiced and being promoted. And this could really significantly influence the team's acceptance and enthusiasm and reduce and mitigate some of that pushback that can occur with rollouts and training programs like this. And then recognizing and rewarding efforts, acknowledging the contributions and celebrating the efforts and the achievements of the staff and volunteers who have gone through the program and given feedback on it. And so public acknowledgement can be really motivating for individuals. We have a Behavior Champions program where we have a quarterly activity. And whenever we roll out new training for behavior and training, that is usually one of the activities for the quarter. And so as staff complete it, they will get a pin, and we've actually started to expand our different prizes. So now they can collect different Behavior Champion logo gear that they can use, they can have on their uniforms, they can use while they're working. And so it provides an incentive and recognition to those who are engaged and participating in the programs. It also helps with recruiting more people as well. And then the evaluation phase. So again, continuing to assess the effectiveness of the course through learner feedback, performance in the assessments. We found as we were working through our educational program that there were some components where, we saw our staff and volunteers, they weren't doing what we thought that they would be doing in the assessment, right? And so we recognized that we made the assessment too hard because we did not give them some of the information and some of the knowledge and skills that was necessary for them to be successful in that assessment. So we had to go back and make a change to that and add some more information to our program. We added additional module so that they could be successful, because otherwise it was actually causing a lot of frustration, and we don't want that in our staff because then you have people drop out, and then that will limit and decrease the effectiveness of the training programs as well. So we were able to recognize that and modify through our learner feedback, and the fact that they felt comfortable saying, like, this was really frustrating, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing in this assessment. Surveys, really great. We set up a survey beforehand, before they went through any of the education modules, and then we set up the exact same survey afterwards so that we were able to assess their knowledge, skills, and confidence levels with the different objectives, learning objectives, before and after. And so if you're interested in learning more about that assessment, I actually presented last year at Animal Behavior Society conference with the results of that and how it impacted our staff and volunteer knowledge, skills, and confidence. And they're self-reported answers to that, and it was really, really interesting to see. And we saw an increase despite some of the frustration with some of the modules that we had in the assessments. And And then you can measure outcomes in other ways, looking at length of stay. How does the training program impact length of stay? Since it's been implemented, you could look at post-adoption, surveys. Again, do that survey to assess knowledge, skills, and confidence level from staff and volunteers. And then with this iterative process, being able to refine the program and adapt resources, think about resource allocation for the future and how to plan for a sustainability so that we can keep this going. And just a few tips. We did get a few questions the last time just about pushback and, talking about how to champion change. And so here are just a few tips. We've already kind of touched these, but I just want to highlight them on how to help with navigating resistance and really fostering that positive environment that embraces change for the betterment of the animals and for the people who are caring for them in your organizations. And so championing change within the organization, it really begins with engaging staff and volunteers early and often in the process of creating these programs, getting their feedback, through those surveys, and that helps you identify your needs and what is needed to be able to train and elevate and empower your staff to do more with the animals. This is also creating an inclusive environment where every voice is valued. Every effort is directed towards growth and improvement. And by clearly communicating, these benefits and having that communication plan in place, providing support and resources and addressing concerns directly, we can foster a really flexible culture that gathers that feedback, recognizes achievements, and actually takes action on these items as well to support the people and the animals. And so hopefully then this doesn't feel overwhelming, and this process doesn't feel overwhelming. One thing that as behavior professionals, we have to sit back and actually recognize, what do we do in behavior modification cases? Well, we take things, we make smaller steps, right? And we take things step by step. And so that was a really important lesson too for us, is that, these small changes, they really help us get us started. They are much more attainable, these steps. They help us avoid decision fatigue and just fatigue in trying to create and problem solve. They definitely create momentum, and they help multiply and breed that success. And over time, they add up. And so as we climb that staircase step by step, these small changes will collectively elevate the experience and effectiveness of our organizations, staff, volunteers, and most importantly, the welfare of the animals that are in our care. And the small changes can have big impacts on our organization. And by the time we look back at the beginning of the process, we see that we've come an enormous way in helping to empower our staff. So hopefully that gives some relief that, small changes do add up to big impacts over time. So please do what you can, adapt this process and we love the adding model because of its flexibility and how adaptive it was to be able to meet the needs of our organization and see it being very beneficial for other organizations as well. So just to kind of sum up and just show that resource page again. So our toolkit not only is located on the PEDIGREE Foundation resources on their website, it also can be found here on the Welcome Committee resource page through our website. In the toolkit, check it out. There's a readiness scale. There's examples of monitor sheets, all the different tools to build the operational program. And also it goes into details about all of these different phases and the objectives and different steps that are taken in these phases that we just talked about, so that you can use that as a guide to build more education and add more education and training programs into your organization. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but also you may reach out to us at Behavior Center Academy at sdhumane.org. And we are happy to work with you and also support you in this journey as well.
Oh, thanks so much, Amanda. I think as we let, I think we have a smaller group today, but if you guys
Yeah.
have any questions, just put it in the chat, please, and we will get to those. I wanted to ask a couple questions just because there's so much here. And just the first one, it's more of a statement, is just thanks so much for sharing your knowledge around this lessons learned for the volunteers and for staff, because I just think sometimes it's that getting started piece, right? That we all just struggle with. And I think this is really, really helpful in knowing that, by creating this welcome committee and this program, you guys went through just so many reiterations. You're constantly improving. I think it's just really important for folks to know that, you may have started with one thing and you may have said that doesn't work. And this is what's working, for our staff, for our volunteers. And I wanted to kind of talk details around, you guys have rolled this out for your organization. How many pets, I guess I'd say, through, I know you have a high intake. How many have you touched so far? Do you know off the top of your head?
Oh gosh, it's in the, you know what, I looked before the last one and I don't remember the exact
Yeah.
number, but it was somewhere over, because we have this for our dogs as well, right? And then we also have an iteration for cats,
Yep.
to help support cats. And for dogs, I mean, it's in the thousands, the number, since we've started the program. And really, one of the things that I think we learned so much more when we first implemented the program, we didn't have this educational component of it. And what was so exciting was how we saw our staff and volunteers change when they reported their improvements in knowledge, skills, and their confidence levels in these areas and in these objectives. And so that, I think, has been able to help not just the dogs who are receiving help in the welcome committee, but it's applicable to any of the animals that they're working with, or any of the dogs that they're working with. These are all really practical and useful skills for the work that we do every single day, not just those dogs. So it kind of spans beyond the welcome committee dogs that we've worked with.
That's awesome to hear. And how many have you had go through the program, like the training program, either staff or volunteers?
We've had 128 staff and volunteers. So smaller number of volunteers, but larger with staff.
Okay. That's awesome. And you guys also mentioned, I know that you had a welcome committee cohort in September.
Yes.
What are, do you know the dates? And then how long is that training?
Yeah. We don't know the dates yet.
Okay.
So SPA, Shelter Play Group Alliance, it will be hosting on their learning management system, which is so helpful for us because of the way that we set up assessments. Their volunteer graders are helping to support this program for the next 2 cycles, actually, of the training program. And so I don't have exact dates yet. So we know it's probably going to be early September.
Okay.
So we'll start to send out information to folks, around July, August, to make sure that we know internally how many folks we need to have signed up, and then also how many spots we'll have available for other shelters who are wanting to participate as well.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for you guys. I think this is such a valuable program. And I didn't know if there was any other questions here in the chat. I don't see anything currently. Give it like maybe one more minute. See if anybody has any additional questions. I think there's a lot I want to go back through and just look at myself. I mean, just from a learning standpoint, I think there's always things we can do to improve how we teach, how we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, as a leader going through this, and as a manager going through this, I think this just opened me up to so many, just a new framework to better support our staff just through general change as well. And so it's just been a really beneficial learning process for all of us through this.
And
So.
probably a great journey.
So one of
we
the
have a
questions.
question.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
go
did
ahead.
see a question come by. Is there a cost to the training program? So great question, Christine. When we open up to other organizations, there will be no cost. So I do anticipate, though, that there will be a lot of interest. So we'll have some sort of interest form application, something in place when we send out more details about the dates. Since we'll be splitting the seats that we have for our staff with open seats for other organizations.
Okay. Well, good. I think then we will close it up for today, and then you
Great.
guys know who to reach out to. I just thank you guys again for sharing your knowledge with us. I just think this is, like I said, I think we're hearing so many more stories around behavior in shelters and how we can help. And so this is such a valuable toolkit and also, webinar to listen in on. So thank you again, and thank you for those of you that joined us today. We'll have this recording up on all of our sites probably by tomorrow.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
everyone.
Yes, thank you for
All
the
right,
opportunity.
bye-bye.
Bye.